Calling Planning Commission October 7th, 2025 meeting to order. Can we begin with a roll call of attendees?
Commissioner Tantil, Commissioner Hotke,
Present.
Commissioner Lucenti, Commissioner Gormley Barnes,
Here. Present.
and Chairman Greg Skovich.
Present. If everybody could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Moving on down the agenda, we have some minutes to approve from September meeting, in which we heard an ordinance for a garage conversion to a living space, and then a documented narrative about our discussion or ongoing discussion about fences. I trust everybody had time to review. If you didn't, take a minute. Once you feel it's in a form that you might be able to motion or suggest corrections, I would entertain them. Andres, thanks a ton for all your the due diligence that you've compiled for us. Looks like we've got a summary of some past activities from a subcommittee that the past administration organized. It looks like we've got a comparison, which was extremely helpful, of some adjacent communities. And then also looks like we have a draft form of a survey that we should probably talk about tonight. So we've spent a lot of time to date on the subject. It looks like we've got a couple more conversations ahead of us. I don't know that tonight's conversation will be as exhaustive as the past conversations. I think settling on a survey would be a great objective for tonight, and perhaps having the results of that survey for us to discuss at our next meeting, and trigger some more thoughtful dialogue. But Andres, why don't you tee us up for all the documentation that you've put in front of us, and then let us know if you have a different agenda for the agenda.
No, that's about what we were going to go through. As you note, that we've been continuing to provide additional background information on the this issue. One of the things that we were directed to do, and we've been doing very well, is a comprehensive overview of it. So one of the more requested items that we worked on, staff from our, particularly our intern, Brandon Fleischer, he did a comparison of 14 communities and their various fence code regulations. So this provides a pretty good, clean, he did a really good job on it. For some reason, and the spacing and the formatting got really weird there, but his first page in the memo is a summary, the narrative summary of the next page, which is the matrix that shows the different types of setbacks, heights, different types of code. And there are some, if you're looking at the PDF that I sent out, there are hyperlinks in there. He uses a lot of hyperlinks, which is nice, so you can click on them and that. But you can see that there generally is they kind of settle between 4 and 6 feet tall, and that where they are depends on height, but more often than not they're 50% open. So that's something that could, when we're looking at that and we're looking at the types of what the surrounding community characteristics are, is a good reference for it. And there's not a huge amount of, that's what I'm looking for here. There's a very large amount of variation in direct correlation to what the community members feel as the character of it. Now, once again, materials, most of them banned, things like barbed wire, electric fence, or anything that causes damages to humans. One of the unique ones is Riverside, because Riverside is a historic, at least most of it is historic Olmsted plan, so they tend to have a few more codes related to that. So, like I said, they're all tend to be very kind of unique, and very towards the community character that they're looking at on it. And of these are the ones that, of the 14 or so that we looked at. I apologize. I want to highlight this. We also highlighted, I asked Brandon to look at Cook County as well, because specifically that, we have a very large amount of unincorporated Cook County adjacent to us. And so getting an idea what Cook County allows for regulations for fencing was also important. But otherwise, the only one in that matrix that doesn't allow them is us on that. So,
On the matrix, the top line or the top row, is that actually LaGrange?
I'm looking at this again.
Because I noticed LaGrange was not listed here.
That might be Lagrange, actually. Like I said, and I'm looking at this again, and like this is not the format that I was reading on it, so this might have gotten messed up in transit for going from Google Docs to Word to that. I'll double check on that, and we'll get a revised copy out on it. Yeah, because I looked at that again. I'm like, wait a minute, it said 6 feet and 4 feet. I'm pretty sure that was what Lagrange had, because we have Lagrange Park on there. But anyway, so I'll review that again. We'll go back in there and double check on it, see what some of the spacing is on it. But the narrative up top there also has that kind of a summary of it.
Yeah, I think it's just that one line that
Yeah.
that one cell looked like maybe it wasn't
got
the
transposed somewhere.
right thing.
Like I said, I'll get the revision of that, but you can, like I said, just kind of looking at the analysis, and that was really what I wanted to, was to have him look at was the analysis of what, and summarize what exactly all the different pieces were, and what kind of the characteristics were, and as I said, they vary a lot. So that's it for the fence matrix. Was there anything else on that you wanted to have questions that I could possibly answer?
Compliments to Brandon. This is very helpful. A lot of due diligence, a lot of research.
I tried to get him to stay to give the presentation for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
he didn't, he didn't
was
want.
gonna pepper him.
He apparently has class on Tuesday nights or something.
Okay.
Grad students, right?
One question.
Yeah.
So only the first one calls out requirement of permits. Do they all require permits?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything's a building. Everything would be required a building permit for it, because they're all building structures. So, is there any other questions on that I can answer?
Not for me.
Okay. Well, then with the commission, I'll keep going on that. So after that, one of the things that we were tasked for as well was to review the committee meeting minutes for the shed and fence committee meeting. And outside of one of these meetings, which was the October 27th, these were actually never created and or approved. So you get to see them pretty much hot off the presses. We did not find a recording or any sort of minutes or note taking for the November meeting on that, so that is lost to the ether, unfortunately. The December meeting did have a brief recap on it. It was very, very brief, but these are the minutes that we were tasked with looking at and doing. These were also done by Brandon. I found the Facebook Live versions of it and pulled it off the internet, gave him the transcript, and said, "Here you go. Please get these done." So this was the discussions were on for that one. As some people who are on that committee who might be present here might note that it was very short. It was 4 months, and within 2 months, they basically tossed the issue of fences and focused mostly on sheds, which, from my just listening to Brandon having to transcribe the minutes, seemed to have some. That was not what some committee members considered wanted. But here they are. Here are the minutes on it. And as I've stated at the beginning, when we started talking about reviewing fences, is that this seemed to follow a very similar pattern to most of the times when this has been reviewed in the community, which was essentially it started, the discussion got very, people got very invested in discussion and got very passionate, and they kind of just walked away from it because it seems like it was too much work and they didn't want to deal with it. Which is something why we're going through this now, and we're doing this in a very measured manner. So please review those. I don't think there's anything in there that you'll be surprised about. A lot of the discussion revolves around the same type of things that we were discussing already, but it was also part of the resolution that was passed by the board that we have to review these.
That committee, one of the outcomes of that committee was what we went through a couple of years ago, right? With all of the people who have fences being asked to come in for variances.
Yeah, special
That happened
uses.
after.
Yeah, that was
right.
That was basically the off ramp that they did. Was basically everyone who wanted to shed in a fence could come in, or had a shed in a fence could come in and ask for a special use, and most of them were approved. That's essentially what it came down to. Yeah. So those are the minutes of that. As you can see that, as time went on, they just meetings were not really as productive as they could have been, but that was that. So the last thing was actually one of the things I gave you was a handout, because I didn't have time to fully review it before the commission. Where is it? This documentation, this memo, and I apologize I didn't actually get down to be able to critique it for grammar. So was that this historical fence discussion document summary. As I've stated before, I've subjected poor Brandon to going through every single board meeting minute and planning commission from 1993 to see the word fences and to see what the words fences were about. Luckily, we have AI to help with that nowadays. But it still took him a very significant amount of time. So once again, I want to give him kudos for sticking through that, because that was rough. And basically looking through it, we basically summarized the history from when the village was created to a couple years ago. What the discussions on were with fences, what were the reasonings, what basically was summarized as happened. And I'll have to send you the PDF, but once again, these things that are in blue actually link down to them further down. But you can see on this, when he was talking, when we see the very common comments we see. Fences that were for reasons that they were they were allowed, were basically that they were legally non-conforming or they were grandfathered in at a point. Pools exist. Pools were one for a while before we just made them naturally allowed. The special needs in that he's referring to as the reasonable accommodations, and then perimeters along busy roadways and other non-residential, so Joliet Road and Brookside, where they currently exist. He also puts a very good summary about the themes. Nothing's going to jump out here that you've never heard before, but about safety, privacy, the reasonable accommodation, of course, but also comments about animals, making sure that they're able to have a fenced-in yard so they can let the animals out. But also then a lot of discussion was maintaining the village character. He has a nice little timeline down here showing you kind of the major actions that happened at certain points in time. He has the general statistics in the back as well. We've kind of covered that already. But to note here, what we didn't cover was that he noted here fences have been discussed with no actions on the requests 10 times in the Indian Head Park history. So there are, they've been requested 15 times, all residential, and, at least another 10 times, almost 2/3 the amount of times as well. Nothing happened on them after that. What we just spoke about was the summary of it, but he breaks it down here in those kind of categories that he was talking about. Those that were grandfathered in. 1964, they were allowed, if they had fences, to keep the fence, but then after 10 years, they were supposed to get rid of them. We talked about the pool fences, which we've gone over before, the special needs or the reasonable accommodations, which we spoke about before. The perimeters along busy roadways or cut through traffic was something that we've heard before as well. He kind of summarizes that. Once again, we kind of hear about it. And this is also when Wolf Road started getting busier, when Joliet Road was still Route 66 before it became just completely Joliet Road. and the types of sort of like that. And also, of course, with foot traffic coming through as well. So you can kind of see he outlines which the properties had them and what they were either approved or denied on. And then, like I said, and he elaborates a little bit more on the safety. So themes, safety, we're talking about children or property damage. Nothing unusual there. He notes that it usually actually led to an approval when it came up during board meetings. That was much in the earlier time before the plan commission really started getting the meats of that, or they didn't even have a plan commission at that point. Privacy concerns were usually denied by the board with the response of plant barrier screening of bushes and trees. The reasonable accommodations were made twice in history. Both times this was approved. One time it was approved after a lawsuit. Most common reason for denial. Stop me if you've heard this before. Maintaining the village character was when most people like to see that kind of more rural, bucolic, less suburban feel of it. And then, of course, always animals and keeping animals in a yard was another very common reason. But even though it's come up often, the requests were never moved, or there wasn't actually a request on it. It was more of a reason for having them. So those are the kind of background information that provided for it that eventually will also be in our reports as well to the board of the different reasoning. Like I said, nothing this commission or anyone probably has never heard before, but we wanted to provide it in a more empirical manner than previously. So I'll take any questions on those if you have them.
I have a couple questions. In the code, we've noted a couple times there's this kind of restrictive provision, but it's in there to allow for a very small enclosure attached to your house, like 75 square feet maximum or something.
Correct.
Is there no record of how many times that's been requested or approved just because that's allowed by right? As long as someone comes in and just says, I just want to do this little
I haven't
8x8 area, does that just get approved?
Yeah, that would
or-
just be a building permit, got approval.
Okay.
I have noted there was a couple times in the more in-depth document where we just basically took excerpts from every single one of the minutes. We pulled them out and put them in there, and then that's what Brandon then analyzed the narrative
Yeah.
for. That it did get mentioned quite a few times, and it often comes up when someone would ask about having a fence for dogs. They would say, well, we were allowed to have this enclosure off the house.
Mhm.
I have not
We don't know how many places in the village someone has actually gone ahead and
Right,
done that, though.
and I've not seen a building permit with it. That's
Okay.
most likely because if they have it, it's just they put it up in the backyard. So
And then my other question is with the fences that were put up in the rear yards of the houses that back up to Joliet Road.
mhm.
When did that happen? And was that something where all of those individual property owners kind of came in at once and said, hey, we're all going to do this, and they did it? Or did the village coordinate that or even pay for it at some point? How did that come about?
So it was by the property owners at a certain point in time. They went on it.
Okay.
Give me a minute. I'll have to look at my permit log.
Sure. IDOT didn't put them in?
I'm fairly certain not. Let me.
'Cause I thought I read where IDOT.
They might have assisted at one point when IDOT expanded it, but give me one more second. Let me look at let me find out my permit log because I've seen documentation as well. Oh, I forgot that. Sorry. Give me 1 second. The laptop, the function key is where the control key is normally, so I'm like hitting the wrong button. But I remember specifically that it came in, and when we were talking about it, where is it? One more second. Because I know it's their property, and I thought at one point in time someone had come in and requesting, like a couple of neighbors had come in and requested it, and then they later basically said, we're not going to all put them up at once. Get all your neighbors on board, and I think the neighbors got on board. But let me see if I can find it really quickly.
Yeah, there's mention here on page 3 of a resident who requested permission along Route 66, and the village said plant shrubs. and table the matter until his neighbors had the same requests.
Yeah, that
So
one-
at some point, all the neighbors came in and said, we're ready to
correct.
put the fence in, and they all kind of did it at the same time, but it
Mm.
was on them to do it.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of trying to look for it.
Because there's also a fence along the back of the commercial property on Joliet, like where the Walgreens and the
Yeah, that's
Willow Hills, but it seems to me like that one might have been put in by the commercial property owner because it all matches and it's
yeah,
newer.
that was put in by when the property was created as part of it. But so to answer the question of when those were put in, there is an ordinance 96-13, so 1996, that amended the municipal code to permit fence construction at a bunch of code, 6634, 6632, 6630. Those are all 28, 26, Cochise, and then 6624 through 6612 and Osceola. So that was in 1996 that they were permitted to put them in, and there's a certain style, and there's a lot of that. So all right, this is my fence file that I'm trying to figure out a way to make it easily digestible.
So there was just one ordinance passed to let everybody do it.
Mhm.
They did it at the same time, and now those fences are 29 years old, which is why they're starting to
All down, yeah.
fall over. Okay.
There are some at one point in time, in 20, I think it was 18. A lot of them got letters from us basically saying they need to fix those fences. So yes. What was the first part of that question?
Oh, that if people have to come and get a variance to do the dog run, maybe the issue is just that it's easy enough to comply, and if people want to do it, they just
Oh, yeah.
are given permission to do it. So we don't have a record of action being taken.
Yeah, so for like a dog run type structure, we don't have a record for it because most time it'd be strung up and we wouldn't, I'm not walking through people's backyards. The other thing is with the, same thing with like the enclosure, which is almost like an attached kennel, more of a style. And like I said, people probably put that in or put that over a patio or a deck or something, and we wouldn't know. Or maybe they don't. Maybe it's just not enough of a benefit, too much of a hassle. But yeah, we do not have any. I've not seen them, and I don't think we have a record of them either.
And the last thing is the survey.
Yep. So the survey, you've seen this before. This is what I had sent you previously to get your feedback on it. I will note that a recurrent bit of feedback was either to add more specific questions, either with respect to whether they think it would be good for property values or safety or others, etc. And then also some additional kind of education type components, making it longer. And in my replies to that, I've basically stated that we don't really want to create. Well, first, I want to keep it as short as possible because people have short attention spans, and the shorter a survey, the easier it is. And in relation to trying to make it either longer or add more options or add more education as well with it, we really want to be careful about adding bias or leading questions. And so while a lot of things like, do you think this improve your property values? Do you think this improve X? Do you think this is some, it creates a leading question, which we don't want to do. And to some extent that we don't really need to know their reasoning of why. We just want to know if they will or won't. So it's very basic, and it's like I said, it's 5 questions, 4 of which if you answer no to number 1. So I'm just gonna read it out because there's not an example of it that we in the packet. So the first question we kind of went with, do you believe that Village Mini Head Park should allow fences in residential districts? If they answer yes, they go to the second question, which we ask where they want it to be. If they answer no, they go all the way to question 3. If they answer don't know, they also go to question 3. Question 2 is, if yes, where should they be allowed in residential properties? Please check all that apply. And then we have a nice image I stole off the internet that they can check where that is, and it shows them basically where on the property that they'll be. So they can go through, they could check that box, tell us where they think they should be. And then my third question was, and I added this one specifically in there for that kind of I've seen a lot of people just kind of reading the feedback previous years, current years about they seem to be split on like Wolf Road or Joliet Road or not really Willow Springs Road because only we only have like 2 houses on there or like 4 houses on there, but still Willow Springs Road is also and Plainfield Road. And so this is why the third question I put in there is say, basically, regardless of whether you said they should have them or not, do you believe that properties bordering Willow Springs Road, Joliet, Wolf, and Plainfield should be allowed to have fences on the part of the property that border those roads? It's a little wordy. I wish I could figure out a way to make it look more concise. But it basically is asking that, if you have a property abutting that section of the very high traffic road, do you think they should have it? And that was the question that in the 2019 fence survey was where it was split. So if you remember, it was about 60-40 no when they asked about regular, fences.
Mhm.
But when they asked about Wolf Road, it was about 60-40 yes. So it had that kind of flip distinction in there. So that's why I added the question 3 in there. Demographic information, which is basically, in which very general area of the village you live. Same as we did for the community survey, which is basically, west of Wolf Road, east of Wolf Road, or south of Joliet Road. And that captures pretty much single family, mostly not single family, but also mostly HOA, and then everybody else, the mix that is south of that. So, and then the funnest question of all, which is any other comments? So they can tell us all of what they think about us on it. And like I said, I do like in any other comments. I add at the end because of the fact that it's the one that requires the most thought. It requires a lot of, writing and that. It's not just kind of checking boxes. And so I leave basically the most mentally challenging question that requires you to think the most to the end. And so that they can then have gotten through it. Now they have all the energy. They know they're done after this question. So, it's kind of just good surveying. You don't want to tire them out in the front end. Like I said, so any other comments on there so they can tell us that. And I particularly like it because they might say something we don't know about. We can get that extra information. So that's the survey. To briefly touch on the process going forward, if you all give me the thumbs up on this going forward, what we'll be doing is we'll be mailing it out to every household. Why are we mailing it out? Because we looked at the digital options of it, and there's not a good way to enforce basically a one respondent per that. And I've had quite a few people part of the concerns of, digital ballot box stuffing. So we couldn't find there are some like SurveyMonkey and other surveying online that do it through IP address, main regulation. But the free ones only allow for like 25 responses, which I think we're gonna get more than 25 responses. And then we were looking at doing a Google form, but that requires you to sign in. If you want to enforce only one response, it requires you to sign into Google account. Most people don't have Google accounts. And then in further discussion on it, we realized that 2/3 of our water bills are paid either by check or cash, not a digital option. And so because of that, we were looking at that and saying, well, if 2/3 of an essential bill are paid by not electronic means, we might be missing a significant portion of the village by using a solely electronic manner. We looked at then putting them into the water bills, but that comes with the fact that some people aren't on village water. And also some of the communities, some of our that are on our water are also paid by their HOAs. So we don't have each individual water bill. So we start basically then we'd have to be mailing them individually with the water, and we basically went with the simplest option, which is we have a list of addresses in the village. We're just gonna stuff them and send them out that way with a self-returning envelope or self envelope on. So that's what we're looking at doing on them, and that way we have it. We know it goes only one household. When they come in and drop it off, we'll make sure that it's only we only get one of them back. So if we'll be checking off addresses.
When do you
we go
want to
through.
launch?
So that's the next point about it. If you give me a thumbs up tonight, we are going to start stuffing tomorrow.
Okay.
And we are going to get them out in the mail this week so we can get
What do
them
we
going.
think about the questions? Short, sweet, direct, and to the point.
Absolutely, yeah. The temptation is to add more, and we discussed that at the last meeting.
Yeah.
So the mental aptitude and attention. I thought we came in on 5 questions, so I believe this is a good thing. The provision, I guess, is the creative question of 5. What are the thoughts? They could recap that. All the questions that have come up in the previous meetings about type of fence, structure, what about utility lines? They could recap that all here, and then we could choose to summarize that in some fashion and maybe enhance our thoughts based on the responses. But I like the short, concise, easy to.
Do we have a meeting on the 4th, or given it's election day, will we push?
I don't think we have elections on the 4th this year.
Okay.
At least DuPage County hasn't told me that I need to be there for them. So
So if we have a meeting on the 4th, which is the first Tuesday of November, and results are obviously the results will trickle in up until the 30th. It's not like you're going to get hit with all of the results on the 30th. So assuming that's, you're not inundated on the 30th, do you think you'll be able to compile a summary and present the results to us 2 days later?
I should be able to provide a, if nothing else, a preliminary one.
Okay.
Saying here's how many we received at this point at this time, and as time we'll be analyzing them as they come in, and as time continues on, we can
Excellent.
if there's any dramatic shifts, we'll know.
The contingency factor that we probably should just briefly touch on is if we have a low response, do we offer an extension? What's your thoughts there?
So part of the benefit of sending it to every household in the village is that we should get enough for a statistical response on it. There are statistical methods that we can use to, like looking at it, we basically need about 10% of the 1,800 to get back to us, a little over, maybe 15%, which is to get us a good statistical sampling of the village. And that's very doable. And there's also we had concerns that were brought up about in that what happens if 2/3 of the ones that come in are from west of Wolf Road, and even though that's not how the population is split up. And the other thing with that ability to have a very large sample, we can also do some statistical weighting if need be. If like only 2 of them come from south of Joliet, that's going to get a little bit weird. But at the same time, we could, there's also the ability to read into it that if you don't answer, no one answers, they obviously don't care that much, right? That's also something that can be read into it. So there are ways that we can do it, and that's part of the reason also we went with just mailing every household, because with 4,000 people in town, it's we don't have a huge swath to be able just to figure about. So instead, we're going to hit everybody, and that basically almost provides us a very good chance of getting a sample back large enough to get a confident representative sample of the community that we can make database decisions on.
On the demographic, and I ask this of the commission.
Okay.
I may be going down a slippery slope here.
Well, I was going to have a follow-up to his.
Did you? I'm sorry.
That's okay. You're going to use actual data, not projected data, when you have all the surveys in, right?
Right. So we'll do both. So basically, I'm going to show you everything and say, hey, here's everything. But like I said, if we get something that's going to skew results, what we'll do is we'll basically note on a response saying, okay, here's what the results, here's the raw results, here's what it says. And then if we were to balance it by the households from each geographic,
So it'll be actual.
yeah,
Actual.
you'll see both. So
But if we only have 15,
Right.
it's
Gotta
so
make game day decision.
hopefully we have 100 plus.
Yeah.
we'll start knocking on people's doors at a certain point. Just
So on the demographic, do we care how old the respondent is?
I'm interested to know whether there's someone who would be able to help.
Sure, right.
I mean, if we get a bunch of responses from people east of Wolf Road who couldn't have a fence anyway, and they're like, sure, have fences. We have to kind of discount that result, because if you live in a condo, I don't really care what your opinion about fences is, to be honest,
So we,
because you can't have one anyway.
So,
You know, like it's
taking a step back, we don't care how old people are.
how old they are.
Yeah. Like,
Mm,
I don't
are you
think,
assuming the old people live in condos and?
no. It's just if Indian Head Park is transitioning, i.e., it's flipping from a
Oh, you want to see if there's any relationship between people who say, yes, I want a fence.
20 to 40 or 40 to 60 or 60 to 80. I'm
It would be interesting to know that, but that doesn't affect their standing to give us a response.
5 questions. I would love to have
fine.
20
No.
because we could go
Yeah.
into the segmentation. But if this is the way we hope to get at least initial thoughts on what the community is looking for, then we could decide to enhance that maybe with a
Okay.
issue a second one.
Yeah. I presume that we don't have endless budget to be sending mailed surveys with prepaid return envelopes to everyone in the village more than once.
I mean, we have the budget that is provided to us. It's not
But, yeah,
that expensive, but
When
yeah.
one of the techniques I've seen in surveys is you get the basic, let's call it the 5 that you're really looking for answers
Mhm.
on. And then they ask, if you choose to, please answer the following. And then there's not a like gift card at the end or something like that, but
Be
or
entered
enter
into a
into a
drawing.
lottery for a gift card. But that could be a consideration if we're limited by the number of surveys we could issue.
I think that if we should wait till we get the results back, because
Yeah.
right, the results that come back could be very robust and answering all the questions we want, or we could infer based on the data with a representative amount that we know what's going. You know, we can make it. We don't not looking for additional information. If you're looking for additional information, there's different ways to do it. We can send out additional surveys. You can do focus groups. You can do that one word that I can't pronounce, charrettes. I can't ever pronounce it. There's lots of different ways you can get more, focused, segmented information if we really feel like we need to break down into it. But I
Yeah.
think the beginning is this 5 questions. I think it's a good start, and I think it might answer all the data questions you'd have that are not more just kind of curiosity
So
like
how do we-
age.
sorry. So how do we feel as a group? Is this a thumbs up, motion to thumbs up?
I agree to it.
Motion
Yeah.
to thumbs up?
Let's see the results and then decide whether we need to take other action.
I saw your. It's like, how do I?
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, you would, with the household information you have, that you're sending this to everybody.
Yeah, every
You
house.
could theoretically send a targeted survey to people that own a property that might be affected by a particular regulation change or something. Engage a more targeted audience for some specific question if we were really struggling to understand the level of support for something. But I mean, you have the ability to say,
Yeah.
like, we just want
So we didn't
certain kinds of households and
to
ask
get
them.
to get really into the statistical weeds. We didn't. Part of the other thing about sending it to everybody was we didn't do kind of a random selection from the different segmentations of the populations of whether it's single family or condos or HOAs, or we could do all that.
Yeah.
We
Keep
didn't
going.
do all that because we think that this is sufficient and good, and it is also, I said before, the benefits of the broad based sampling, and at the same time, it's also fast. We do have limited staff, and we do have a limited ability to, design and implement these surveys to some extent, and we don't need to spend another 5 to 10 hours picking out random households if we don't need to. If we
I-
want to do it
yeah.
again, we could, but
I think question 4 gets you close to what we're all seeking, is some insights to who's actually completing the survey. And if the numbers are such that we can't do a really good interpretation of what people want, we could look at the directions of and the results of 4 and say, well, the reason why the numbers are they are because south of Joliet is mostly condos and townhomes or whatever. So I think we could get there with what we have in the 5 questions initially.
Agreed.
Okay.
All right. You have thumbs up.
Thank you. And if any area comes back to small, I can always have you go bother your neighbors.
Yes.
For sure. I'll everybody get the word out. This
Like
will be coming
precinct
next week.
captains, we could do that.
So as far as presentation of material, that's everything. Nice work. That was a lot in the last month.
Yeah, thank you very much.
This will help support whatever the heck recommendation we have to the board, and to review the schedule. We are electing to host 2 public hearings. Is that correct?
We can post 2 public hearings if you feel that if you think that we hold a public hearing and more input is needed.
Okay.
Now since it's not we're not changing the code, it's not like a legal public hearing that we have to then put in the paper and so many it's not that, but it is something that we can hold a public hearing, and if you feel that like if we're here and the house is packed and it's been 2.5 hours and we're like, okay, well, we obviously need to hear more again, then we
Got
can
it.
have another one.
Perfect. Okay, so we're not advertising a public hearing.
It's more of an open house, but yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be on the website. We'll put a sign up. We'll stick it on the Heritage Center. We'll do all the things and make it known.
On that subject, in this upfront narrative, do we need to say the Plan Commission will be continuing discussions on November 4th and December, if you want to?
We need to have the results of the survey to present to people when we have the public
Well, I don't
hearing,
think we're
right?
presenting. We're just saying we will be continuing the discussion.
We can give a brief presentation at the beginning of it and basically say we're just here to listen. Like I have nothing that's going to be on the next commission meeting that's not this. So we can say we're just here to listen. Here's we can do kind of a summary of everything we've done. Here's a recap of it. What are your thoughts?
Excellent.
But yes, I do actually like that of adding that. We'll be having a public hearing on November 4th for an open house for it.
Yeah, I would stay away from public hearing because it won't be a public hearing, right?
Not as it's legally defined, no.
So I defer to you on how you frame it, but we're inviting people to engage in the discussion.
Let me double check what the resolution said, because I think it said a public hearing in it, and if it does, we'll have to advertise for it. I'll double check that, and I'll add that language, the appropriate language into the survey.
I like the idea of if it's determined that we have to have some form of formal public hearing, we will schedule one. And if
So
this fills up and we're 3 hours in, we'll continue it and have a second.
to Greg's point here, is the survey going to include the timeline? So people know that there's going to be discussions on these following dates. Is that possible?
I could fit in. I mean, we already have the October 30th and December on there. I could add the November I could add the November meeting in there as well. I wouldn't want to add the second December meeting in there because then people start getting confused.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Because I think once you research the legality of public hearing versus friendly gathering, then you could decide the calendar timelines and add that in.
But I suppose you could kind of reinforce the importance of actually responding by the 30th by noting that, this will be an item of discussion for the Planning and Zoning Commission at their November 4th
Your input
meeting
counts.
at Village Hall at 7:00.
Right.
If people who are really invested might make a note on their calendar when they get it. But that's why the responses are needed by when they're needed. That might.
So
Did we want to? Sorry to interrupt. Do we want to see if there was any public comment on fences?
real quick, before we do, I'd like to plant the seed that ultimately all of this intelligence is going to be compiled, and we're going to be tasked with some form of recommendation to the board, whether that's December or January. We're coming up on having to present our findings of fact to the board and making a recommendation as to how, if, what kind of modifications we may or may not need to make to the fence ordinance. So I just ask that that's our ultimate objective here. So we've got a lot of information here. There's still a very important nugget in the form of the results of the survey coming. So just kind of, I challenge everybody to start thinking about where you're at personally, and then, what you may or may not have been hearing on the streets, and if you have ideas on what a recommendation might look like. That's going to come up on us real quick, and that will probably not be a short meeting. So, yes, I'm guessing you. What are you doing here? I'm just kidding.
I'm doing the neighborhood. What's up?
Is that right? Welcome. Where you live? Oh, wonderful. Bring it.
When I-
Whole roads, like a fence,
Oh, sheds and all. You got the whole thing, huh? Just kidding. Well,
Go big or go home,
welcome. Hey, are you really new?
I am.
Excellent. How long you been here?
Since May.
Wonderful.
I moved from. No, I recently.
Awesome. Okay. Well,
I do have some questions. All right.
are they on the subject?
Yes.
Wonderful.
I was
Please.
gonna ask you a good lotto numbers.
No lotto numbers.
can you just check to make sure that the mic's actually on? It should be looking green.
And you're gonna, and in order to speak, you have to give your name and your address. So
No, you don't. No address.
yeah, and social security. Doesn't have to get a social.
We are legally obligated not to ask for the address, infer about it, or do any of that sort.
Okay.
Wow.
So stop asking for addresses.
Slap your
Really?
hand.
Some people offer it.
They do offer it, but we cannot legally ask
All
it.
right.
Good evening. Brian Wolf, new Indian Head Park resident. Just have a couple questions. So the info that is it Brendan provided, is that available to everybody?
His memos and everything are I'm going to be adding some back in, but if you go into the agenda center and you click on the download agenda, it's the agenda and the packet.
Okay.
I've had them. I've been out since Wednesday. I just got back from vacation. But we are working on creating a landing page where you'll start seeing more and more of this information, so it can be more and more reviewed. But most of the information that I covered tonight is in the packet, so you can look at that and the previous packets as well.
In that, and again, because I've never seen this before, does it include crime statistics?
It includes crime. No, it does not include crime statistics for it. Because we're focused solely on fences. When doing our research on the fences, we were looking to see if fences, residential style fences. I should
Sure.
clarify that. Have any deterrence for crime, and it's actually the data's not very clear.
Okay.
There's no unbiased source that says like a fence does. Not now. It's a static barrier, so it's going to help somewhat control any sort of movement through the a yard or any other type of thing. But with fences, at most residential fences being most residential fences are open, because if you have a closed fence you can't see through, it actually doesn't deter crime, because once you get over the fence, nobody can see what you're doing. So that's why most fences are considered mostly 50% open, so you can see what's going on in the back of it. But with the fences at our heights and without spike tops, barbed wire, etc.,
Right.
there's not really, I tell people like I'm 5'2" and I can jump a 6-foot fence at two steps, not gracefully, but I can. And it ain't gonna be graceful, but I could do it. And so if it would slow a person down, but especially there's not really any good statistics. We did look into that in depth on it.
Well, I'm just curious. I mean, because I have a fence that's a deterrent around a pool. I'm just, and then we talk about style of fence.
Mhm.
Was that also in the in this info piece?
So yes, as the village does currently allow fences in pools, and it's in our code what kind of style of fences that are allowed around pools and for reasonable accommodations. The reason they're allowed around pools is specifically for the building code requires them, and that is to make sure that anyone that is basically under 48 inches can't idly wander into a pool and fall in and
Right.
drown in it, right? And then also our current fence code allowed for reasonable accommodations, 5 feet, black wrought iron,
Right,
no
that's what I
spike top.
have.
Yeah,
Whatever was
yeah,
grandfathered in or whatever was put in was based on the IHP code.
right.
Um, and then I did see something, when you talk about fences and you guys brought up animals. What about Lyme disease? Was there any info on Lyme disease? Because I'm just with, for instance, my deterrent is my fence and I see deer often. And people are wanting this beautiful open oasis to allow for animals to move freely.
Mhm.
Was there anything mentioned about deer ticks?
No, that's actually the first time I heard it. But now that you make that comment, it's interesting to make the connection on it.
I mean,
Um,
IDPH does talk about that there's been a rise.
Mhm.
23, 24, there was, it came down,
Mhm.
but I'm just curious if that was looked at from an Indian Head Park perspective.
Now, I will say that deer fences tend to be not very effective. But also at the same time, one of the reasons we don't allow spike top fences is because deer don't always clear fences. I came from a community that allowed fences, and then some that were grandfathered in, that were legally non-conforming, had spike tops, and about 4 every year had to be euthanized by police officers because they don't clear the spike top fence.
And that's not what I'm looking for. I'm
I know,
just
but
curious when we're looking at this study.
my point is that there isn't anything that we've seen on it. There is some commentary about trying to keep wild animals out. Normally, it's more like coyotes. But fences for restricting kind of like deer aren't very, unless you're starting to get into the 7-foot range, or like 6-foot minimum, 7-foot range. They're not very effective for it, unfortunately. But that controlling the wild animal population to control disease is not something that we've specifically looked
Okay.
at.
So I think, to your point, something we need to address in our report.
We'll
Yeah, I'm
definitely-
just curiosity because you guys talked about pets and people wanting to have fences for their pets. Well, if I'm allowing creatures into my backyard, I just want to know that my dog or dogs or whatever pet I have is not then picking up a population of deer ticks that's been coming from various places in Cook County just
Mhm.
to hang out here because they know the deers can roam freely.
Mhm.
Just
No, that's a very good point. That's why I always actually do love public comment, because people will throw things at me that we never heard before.
And then I do have, is there a breakdown when you guys are looking at these 5 questions? Is there a breakdown of, because you mentioned proximity and you mentioned streets and
Mhm.
busyness, is there a way to look at it from the perspective of you can either have a fence or not have a fence? I mean, like I'm on Wolf Road
Mhm.
and the car population's ever growing,
Mhm.
Is there discussion about this, extending some of the parameters of these fences just to streets like a Wolf Road or specific, again, I'm new to the area.
That is why question 3 was on there, or
Okay.
it was the whole fact of the roads that we outlined in there: Wolf Road, Plainfield Road, Joliet Road, and Willow Springs Road are either county, or in the case of Joliet Road, they're IDOT.
Okay.
And so they are. Plainfield Road is currently being planned for an expansion, and it's getting ever busier. Wolf Road is currently being planned for an expansion. It's ever going to get ever busier. Willow Springs has been recently expanded. It's a very popular thoroughfare, and Joliet Road is the on ramp to I-55. So that is why that question is in there, because those are the unique roads in the village that have higher traffic counts and are not controlled by the village. And there's additional work that is going to be done or has been done on them. So that is why that question 3 was in there, because as I said, in our previous 2019 survey, it was about 60-40 against it in general for residential uses until the question was asked about, do you think that people on Wolf Road, for their safety, should be allowed to have fences? And then it flipped to 60-40 for it. So it was kind of that's a very unique situation, and we want to capture if that opinion is still there. Debiasing the question a little bit. The question was a little bit leading, but at the same time, we are now much more informed about Wolf Road and the expansion and what's going to happen. And so if the community should be more well aware of it. And so we can see if we can capture that segmentation of in specific cases. And if it does happen to be that way, there are certain zoning options that can happen, like overlay districts, that make those properties unique to the rest of the village.
Right, and I happen to be a unique property. I mean, I'm on Wolf Road. I've got a pool. I've got a fence. But is that really enough of a deterrent, that fence? Because it has its, it has its legal piece, and it's got to be a certain way. I'm just curious, with Wolf Road, how, and as you said, you put a question there to specifically look at Wolf Road and potentially other roads like that.
That's one of the options that the Plan Commission could recommend. They come down with a recommendation that the village shouldn't just have a general approval for fences in residential areas. However, in certain locations, kind of like we already have now, because any residential area that abuts a business district, they can have a fence.
Right.
And so that could also be something that the Plan Commission and the board could recommend and say, well, we don't like general fences for the reasoning, but in these specific areas,
Right.
and
It's all being taken into account.
Right.
And ultimately, it'll be up to the board to make a decision, and we're just recommending what our findings are and hearing a lot of exactly what you're describing, especially abutting a major thoroughfare like Wolf.
Yeah, and I like, one of the things we bought Indian Head Park, because it's beautiful. It's got trees, but there's also, we're a family. We've got pets, and like I said, we're unique where we have a pool as well. And then Western Springs was touted as one of the most amazing, most beautiful cities in the state of Illinois, if not the number 2, the number 1. But why are they the number 1? Why are they the number 2? Do they have fences? Was it the fences that helped secure that piece that they are number 1 in the state of Illinois? Was that a security piece? Or, was it the option that people had choices there versus Indian Head Park? I mean, just I saw this piece. I was like, oh, they're number 1. I'm like, no, so.
I'm not saying they probably paid for it. I'm just saying that most of the time this happens. All love to Western Springs. I have colleagues over there, and they're a good town.
I left there. I came here.
Oh well. Obviously, we're better then. No,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Yeah.
your time.
Please remain engaged. Okay. Anything else on fences for this evening? Sounds like we're going to fire on the survey. We'll have another discussion in November. Perhaps a bit more attendance in the audience. If nothing else on fence regulations, let's anything on zoning code?
Nothing large on it. I will say that just kind of working our way through it, one of the benefits of having Safe Built is when things pop up, and especially now we're doing the code, I can add things in there. We had an issue with questions about whether lights were too bright recently. We have nothing in our code that really provides that, so I asked them to add something in there, and they'll be doing that, looking at in the future. So that'll make our lives easier for developments going forward, but also my life easier as the code enforcement officer, so I can stand outside with a light meter and tell you if your neighbor's lights are too bright.
Terrific. Anything from the Plan Commission that we haven't already discussed? Related, unrelated? Nothing? Board report, billing report?
Board report, the board approved the 147 Cascade ordinance, so that has been put into permit review, and I'm working with them to get that approved. Building report, I apologize, don't have it for you. I'm still between August and September. I think I told you last time we got a lot of permits, something like more than one a day through that month and a half. So I'm still trying to get them out because I'm significantly behind. Apologize to anybody that has a permit out there. I'm working as fast as I can. And so I do not have a building report because I'm trying to get them all in so that I can generate it out of there to have a better building report for you.
That's fine. What's this? I see we have a new auto repair shop in town.
That was the one you approved in.
Yeah, no,
earlier?
I know, but that's terrific news. We've got a vacancy that's been filled.
And it seems to be doing well. And I actually sometimes our public works takes guys over there or takes some of our vehicles over there to get work done well, and they seem to be pleased about it.
Excellent.
I've already gone there. And they're good. It's good. Worked
And
out
do
well.
they know you're a plan commissioner?
No, I sent my husband.
What are the odds in a typical election where you get preliminary results? Like 5% of the surveys have been returned. Is there an indicator that could be sent to us before our next planning and zoning meeting? Is that worth it, or you're gonna?
I mean, depending on how many come in and what the time frame looks like, I could definitely send like a weekly report. I think I'll have some other interest that would want that as well. But it just depends on the time frame of it, of what we're looking at. I'll probably give a bare basic minimum of it, but we won't be doing any analysis with kicking out right away.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Do we have a Facebook page?
We have a Facebook page. I think we have an Instagram page. So we have quite a few of the socials.
Will you be able to post or other?
Do I look at Facebook? I
But
don't.
can somebody just say, "Hey, keep your eyes out for a mailer on fences"?
Yes, I was gonna make the joke that I don't have a Facebook, but that'd be a lie because I've had a Facebook since 2008. No, we'll definitely have it out. It's gonna be an all kind of heads up. This keep an eye out for this.
Great.
Do this. We'll have signs out. The whole thing.
Excellent. Any comments from the public? If no comments from the public, any closing remarks from the Plan Commission? If not, I'd entertain a motion for an adjournment.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Commissioner Gormley Barnes' motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Tantillo. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
All opposed? Nice work, team.